Elliot Harper, or Eli as everyone called him, stood on the front lawn of his small Madison townhouse, staring at a bright red helium balloon bobbing gently in the summer breeze. The air smelled faintly of cut grass, nearby barbecue smoke, and sweet ice cream from the shop around the corner. Sunlight reflected off the lake a few blocks away, and the neighborhood's children ran in loops around the cul-de-sac, squealing with joy. Eli had promised his 7-year-old nephew, Tommy, that he would bring the ultimate summer surprise, a balloon with a handwritten message floating in the air, symbolic of dreams taking flight. It was supposed to be magical. The problem was that Eli's coordination, already questionable, was being tested by wind gusts, a stubborn knot in the balloon's ribbon, and Tommy's relentless excitement. "Uncle Eli, hurry, it's floating away," Tommy shouted, running in circles, barefoot on the warm concrete. Eli, trying to tie the ribbon securely to the mailbox, stumbled backward, tripping over the hose and sending the balloon, and a small potted plant, tumbling into the neighbor's hydrangea bush. Mrs. Jenkins, their elderly neighbor, peeked over the fence, fanning herself with a wide-brimmed hat. "Elliot Harper, what are you doing to my flowers?" she called. Eli apologized, cheeks burning, while Tommy laughed hysterically, delighted by the chaos. By the time Eli untangled the ribbon, the balloon had caught a small gust of wind. Despite his best efforts, it slipped through his fingers, ascending into the cloudless blue sky. "No!" Eli yelled, flailing like a cartoon character, but the balloon drifted higher, disappearing behind the rooftops. Tommy's eyes went wide. It's gone." Eli crouched, pretending devastation, while secretly thinking this might be an early metaphor for adulthood, the way things slip through your hands despite your best intentions. He tried to salvage the moment. "It's okay, buddy," Eli said, kneeling to Tommy's height. "Sometimes balloons fly away so another, better balloon can come along." Tommy tilted his head, skepticism and hope battling in his expression. "Another one?" he asked. Eli grinned. "Yeah, just wait." What followed was a series of slapstick attempts to replace the lost balloon. Eli ran to the corner store, dodging sprinklers, loose dogs, and a man walking backward while talking on a phone. He knocked over a display of small American flags, which scattered across the pavement. The clerk, a teenage girl with bright pink hair named Jenna, laughed, shaking her head. "Rough morning?" she asked. Eli, red-faced and out of breath, simply nodded and bought a helium balloon kit. Returning to the front yard, he tried again. This time, the wind blew in a different direction. Eli wrestled with the balloon, tying it to his wrist as Tommy jumped with anticipation. They had a small audience now. Neighbors sipping iced tea on porches, a jogger named Marcus stopping to observe, and Mrs. Jenkins muttering about kids these days. Eli's grip faltered. The balloon bounced off his arm, ricocheted against the mailbox, and shot straight into the air again. Tommy gasped, and Eli groaned in mock despair. Maggie Lewis, Eli's co-worker and friend, appeared with a basket of lemonade. "I heard a man screaming about balloons from across the street," she said, laughing. "Need a hand, or do you want me to just film this for social media?" Eli groaned but accepted her help. They tethered the balloon to a small potted plant this time, sitting on the lawn with rocks strategically placed around it. It wobbled precariously, like a miniature tower in a disaster movie, but held. Tommy clapped and jumped up and down. "It's perfect. You did it." For a brief moment, it seemed like success. Then, a sudden breeze lifted the balloon from its rock anchor, sending it spiraling across the street and into a neighbor's oak tree. Eli and Maggie exchanged looks of disbelief. The community chuckled, some shaking their heads knowingly. Eli leaned on the mailbox, resigned, mud smudges on his shirt, hair sticking to his forehead, and muttered, "Well, life's funny, isn't it?" Tommy, undeterred, tugged at his uncle's arm. "Another one will come, right?" Eli smiled at the resilience of a child's optimism. "Exactly," he said. "Sometimes when one thing flies away, another appears." Maggie grinned. "That sounds like something a movie would narrate over a slow-motion shot of a balloon soaring across the lake." Eli laughed, imagining the absurdity. The neighborhood, the laughing kids, the stubborn wind, and the floating balloons all felt like a cinematic montage of life's small disappointments and unexpected joys. Later that afternoon, Eli, Maggie, and Tommy attended the local summer fair. It was a hub of suburban American life. Cotton candy vendors, kids with painted faces, the smell of hot dogs and funnel cakes mingling in the air. Eli bought a new set of balloons, each one more colorful than the last. Tommy picked a bright yellow one, Eli chose a deep blue, and Maggie, teasingly, got a rainbow-colored balloon. The breeze was gentler here, and the trio walked through the festival, carefully holding their new helium companions. However, chaos found them again. A group of energetic children dashed by, accidentally knocking into Eli, causing the balloons to twist and one yellow balloon to escape. Tommy gasped in mock horror. Eli, ever the showman, flailed dramatically, but the balloon floated away toward the lake. "Fear not," Eli announced, as if narrating his own movie. "For every balloon that flies away, a new one appears." Just as he spoke, a street vendor's cart toppled slightly, and a vibrant red balloon, untethered from a decoration, drifted toward them, gently bobbing in the breeze. Tommy's face lit up. "It's magic," he shouted. Eli caught the balloon, and Maggie laughed. The crowd around them smiled, witnessing the serendipitous exchange. Eli felt a wave of warmth and relief. The symbolic lesson was real and tangible. Setbacks often carry the seeds of unexpected opportunities. As the fair wound down, Eli, Tommy, and Maggie strolled back through the sun-dappled streets of Madison. The houses, painted in soft pastels, were adorned with American flags and flower boxes overflowing with geraniums and petunias. Children played tag on sidewalks, sprinklers glinted in the late summer sun, and neighbors waved from porches. Eli held the red balloon triumphantly, Tommy clinging to the yellow one, and Maggie twirled with the rainbow balloon like a windmill of color. The symbolism was not lost on Eli. Life's disappointments could soar away in the blink of an eye, but joy often arrived in equally bright and unexpected forms. By evening, they sat on the shore of Lake Monona, the water reflecting the golden hues of the setting sun. Eli tied the balloons to a small bench, and for once, let them bob freely without fear. The wind tugged gently, testing their tether, but none escaped. He looked at Tommy's wide-eyed admiration and Maggie's playful grin, realizing that the lesson extended beyond balloons. It was about resilience, humor, and the beauty of letting go while remaining open to surprises. As twilight settled, Eli whispered, more to himself than anyone else, "Sometimes we lose what we love, only to find something better, or at least something equally wonderful." Tommy leaned against him, clutching his balloon, and Eli felt a rare sense of satisfaction. The day had been messy, chaotic, and slightly ridiculous, but it had also been perfect in its imperfection. He had navigated setbacks, laughed through failures, and discovered that the world had a funny, gentle way of offering second chances, often in bright, bobbing, helium-filled packages. The next morning, Madison awoke to a gentle breeze that whispered through maple trees and ruffled the curtains of pastel-colored townhouses. Eli Harper, still smiling at yesterday's escapades, stepped onto his front porch, coffee in hand, while Tommy bounded ahead, holding his yellow balloon tightly. The air smelled of fresh-cut grass, morning pastries from the corner bakery, and a hint of lake water drifting inland. Birds chirped energetically, as if congratulating the neighborhood on surviving yet another day of Eli's chaotic charm. Eli had decided that today would be a calmer, more controlled balloon adventure. He planned a small community activity, a balloon kindness project, letting kids write wishes or uplifting messages on balloons, then releasing them for symbolic flight. This was a deliberate effort to transform yesterday's comic disaster into a meaningful, slightly magical event. Maggie Lewis appeared promptly, carrying a bag of multicolored balloons, markers, and string, her grin wry as she surveyed the chaotic yard. "Are you sure this won't end in airborne anarchy?" she teased. Eli shrugged. "Controlled chaos. That's my specialty." The first batch of balloons went smoothly. Children ran around, scribbling positive messages, while Eli and Maggie carefully tied the ribbons and handed them out. Neighborhood dogs trotted between legs, wagging tails and sniffing at balloons with innocent curiosity. Mrs. Jenkins, always nearby, offered tips about tying knots properly, her floral blouse fluttering in the wind. Even Marcus, the jogger who had witnessed Eli's previous fiasco, paused, laughing as he observed the coordinated chaos. Eli noticed that the community was subtly shifting. Yesterday's misadventures had created a sense of shared amusement, and now everyone was invested in the balloon project. A sudden gust of wind, however, reminded Eli that life, like balloons, could be unpredictable. One bright blue balloon slipped from a child's hand, ascending quickly. Eli lunged, trying to grab it, only to knock over a small lemonade stand, spilling a few cups onto the grass. Laughter erupted, and Eli felt a familiar mix of embarrassment and amusement. Tommy dashed after the runaway balloon, shouting encouragement, while Maggie calmly retrieved the spilled lemonade. It was then that something remarkable happened. Another balloon, vibrant red, untethered from a decorative arch at the small community center nearby, floated toward the group, as if drawn by intention. Tommy's jaw dropped. "Look, it's a new one." Eli caught it with a laugh, realizing how literal this symbolic moment had become. The community cheered. A few neighbors even took photos, capturing the serendipity of the moment. Eli's internal monologue drifted toward humor and reflection. Life has a way of handing you replacements, sometimes before you even notice you need them. Encouraged, Eli began to weave a playful narrative for the children. "See," he said, holding up the red balloon, "sometimes when something floats away, life sends another, maybe even better, to remind you that letting go isn't the end. It's a beginning." The kids listened, wide-eyed, some giggling at Eli's theatrical flourishes. Maggie added, "And sometimes the universe throws in a little comedy to make sure you remember it." The crowd erupted in laughter again, the kind that blends warmth, community, and shared absurdity. As the sun climbed higher, the balloons floated gently, tethered in small clusters, bright against the deep blue sky. Eli noticed subtle changes in his neighborhood. Mrs. Jenkins had tied ribbons around a nearby tree for additional balloons, Marcus jogged past with a balloon tied to his backpack, and other kids began creating mini balloon sculptures. What had begun as a personal gesture for Tommy had blossomed into a spontaneous communal celebration, fueled by Eli's playful spirit and accidental humor. By midday, Eli had adopted the role of de facto balloon coordinator. He moved among the children, helping tie strings, distributing markers, and occasionally flailing dramatically when a balloon threatened escape. Maggie's laughter was a constant soundtrack. Tommy, now confident in the symbolic lesson, handed balloons to his friends, reciting phrases he had memorized. "When one goes, another appears." The wind picked up again in the afternoon, but Eli was ready. He prepared extra weights, secured ribbons, and even enlisted Marcus to anchor a few of the larger balloons. Despite precautions, minor chaos still erupted. A small dog chased a balloon, sending it into a fountain. Another child released a cluster of balloons by mistake, but each incident only deepened the communal laughter. Eli realized that the humor of imperfection was as powerful as the symbolism itself. The day was teaching him, in real time, that life's unpredictability was best met with a combination of preparation, playfulness, and optimism. By late afternoon, the project reached its pinnacle. Eli orchestrated a ceremonial release. Dozens of colorful balloons with messages of hope, gratitude, and silly jokes floated toward the sky. The children cheered, Maggie clapped, and even Mrs. Jenkins teared up slightly, proud of the tiny miracle of a community coming together. Eli released his own balloon, engraved with a small note, "Keep laughing, keep dreaming." He watched it ascend alongside dozens of others, the lake reflecting the burst of colors and the soft wind carrying the messages across Madison. Later, as the festival wound down, Eli, Tommy, and Maggie strolled along the tree-lined streets. The sun cast long golden shadows, highlighting pastel houses, flower boxes, and small porches where neighbors lingered, waving and smiling. Eli carried a few leftover balloons, handing them to children still lingering near the park. Tommy clutched a bright yellow balloon, eyes sparkling, whispering, "Another one appears, Uncle Eli." Eli ruffled his nephew's hair, heart warmed by the simple wisdom of a child's perspective. In the evening, the trio sat on a small dock by Lake Monona. The water glistened, reflecting the sunset in oranges, pinks, and purples. Eli tied the remaining balloons to a bench, letting them sway gently in the breeze. He reflected on the day's lessons. Setbacks were temporary, losses were often precursors to unexpected gifts, and humor made life's unpredictability both bearable and enjoyable. He realized that symbolic lessons could become real-life experiences when shared with others. Eli took a deep breath, watching the balloons dance against the evening sky. Sometimes, he whispered to himself, you lose what you love, and sometimes, life hands you something even brighter, or at least equally wonderful. Tommy leaned against him, sleepy but happy, holding his yellow balloon, and Maggie nudged him playfully. The scene was serene, humorous, and profoundly uplifting, a perfect snapshot of growth, resilience, and the gentle comedy of life. As darkness fell, the balloons glimmered under the soft light of street lamps, reflecting their colors onto the lake's surface. Eli smiled, heart full, realizing that letting go and welcoming new possibilities were not mutually exclusive but complementary. Life was a series of floating balloons. Some slipped away, some appeared unexpectedly, and the joy was in noticing, laughing, and holding on to the ones that mattered.
Like and subscribe if you want daily dose of happiness and motivation.